for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. Anyway, happy equinox and the beginning of a new astrological year. I don't think or believe that we have ever started a year quite like this, as intensely and yet so withdrawn from the current, unfolding of events. And I'm almost seeing like this slowing down, like a slow motion picture, and how we're viewing an unfolding of a blossoming of a rose, petal to petal, like really zooming in. And yesterday in the video in which I completed the trilogy of the videos that discuss the current state of the collective consciousness and our unfolding events, and I've seen actually that for the first time and ever when I was doing these videos for years, I actually wasn't zoomed in. It was actually the background that was at the forefront, and I talked about this picture behind the scenes, and it's almost like Earth as herself, as her living consciousness that we all call Gaia, was like making apparent that she is the leading life force at this time, that she is the one guiding herself and all life on it forward, and we have to trust her. So actually, when I completed the recording of yesterday's video, I said here, there's this beautiful mountain shelf overlooking this waterfall. It's like this mountain gorge, which you can also climb up. And I was just sitting here and meditating for a while, and suddenly I felt this rush of love and encouragement as coming from the core of the planet of Gaia herself, from her essence. And it's almost like she was saying, non-verbally, but the feeling was very nurturing and mothering. And she was saying how no matter how things appear to be, we're all going to be taken care of, but in a new way. A lot of new things are trying to come as the way of expression of our support and the way we live our lives. So it moved me so much, this love, like this bare naked trust, and delving deep into her essence, like not just going into nature, but being present, breathing with her as she's birthing a new aspect of herself, as well as we are the ones doing that as well with her. And it was such a huge wave of love that I was actually moved to tears, and I started crying a bit, and it felt beautiful. It was almost like this wave of love, like look how everyone is trying to be carried within this wave of love into the new experience. Of course, we've talked about how there's layers of panic, fear, anger, frustration, stagnancy, all of that leading to the core of the origin of this ancient stagnancy that was always meant to lead us to a point of a collective birth of something new, through a collective wave of resurrection and restructuring of the way we live our lives here on the planet, basically. And it's interesting because I talked to you about the difficulties that these last few months have brought for those of us who are standing on the frontiers of these unfolding energetic changes and shifts as we're birthing them into motion, how it was the most difficult for those of us who are the first wave. Those who are feeling that as the second wave, they're not going to experience it as their own birthing contractions, but they're already going to be aligned with that which is birthing itself, because it was literally shown that there's only a select few as volunteer souls, and I'm one of these beings who came here, and we were giving birth together in parallel with Gaia as she was doing it for the first time, because we came to assist the planetary ascension, not just that of the collective and the people who are ready to ascend to a new octave of being at this time, and a new vibrational alignment, and alignment with not just the source but the planet, and how to live spirit within our bodies, and to cultivate again the power of the human, the strength that the human can be. So this current unfolding of events is actually very much dependent upon how the humans will open up this rose within them that's trying to come into motion. You know, it's trying to give birth to itself through us. And whether we will resist more or less or not, the more effortless we're going to move with the current wave of the shifting frequencies, because they're being birthed first through the essence, and we've talked about this before. And that's why it is always apparent first to those who work at the level of essence when it's not visible at all. Because let me tell you, in my own experience, when you're birthing and assisting with the birth of specific vibrational templates, it is truly a difficult experience, because it will lead you through a path of not even knowing if you're doing anything, because it's not even energetic. It's essence based first. And when we talk about the essence, we don't even know what it means as humans. We think we know what it means, but we don't. Like, essence is the purest template of life force that gives even the impulse for birth to even be possible. Okay, so when you're at the first lines or the front lines of this experience, it is difficult, because you're actually like breathing with Gaia, helping her with all of her contractions and all that is being released at the same time as birth is also occurring. Because, you know, birth can be both a messy and a beautiful, an orgasmic experience all at once. So this was very challenging, and just yesterday my own light family reminded me of this process. And I knew, because the winter, these past few months have been so difficult, that either we're all going to die or something amazing is being birthed. But what we call amazing is not the achievement that happens overnight. That is why most humans, when they don't see a direct evidence of something, they quit, or they think it's just nonsense or something based on charlatanism, right? And it's truly not like that, because you have to be very steady, very patient with what is unfolding. And it takes tremendous spiritual courage, determination, and faith in this higher process. Not just in Source and our light teams, but also what's happening on Earth. Because a lot of people, let me tell you, are still trying to escape the matrix and feeling squeezed and saying, I just want to get out. You know, I've been feeling all these energies throughout the entire winter. There was so many fears coming from the collective, like this death is the only salvation. And that's the basic teaching of the Christ wisdom, is there's a higher aspect to what we call death and dying here. And it's this transfiguration into this Christ-born consciousness and embodiment at the same time, because it's all in parallel. So I've been feeling a lot of that. And it was almost like this collective voice is trying to quit, and we were trying to put them all together. And it's like, keep the flow of the higher focus no matter what. You know, there's a lot of these voices coming through, and when you're walking through a tunnel, you have to stay very focused on the light that is your guiding light. You don't have to, I mean, you're not supposed to get lost in all these shadow voices, you know, and there's a lot of shadow voices when this clearing as a part of this birthing that's occurring, you know. So yesterday they reminded me of this, and I actually did this quite a long meditation process with the higher team of the spiritual hierarchies that work with the plans and the orchestration of Earth. I'm going to be talking about that on Patreon, where I do my work. It's a more advanced content, but there was a lot coming through about these next few months and what they're going to do in terms of assessment. And they were showing me this process, which for us seems very long as humans, but in terms of the higher processes, it's even lengthier, because it requires so much attention to detail. And all of our gatherings here on Earth compiling at this time, they're coming to a point of this summation, right? The synthesis, which is not just the synthesis that one human performs within themselves, but it's like a collective synthesis of those souls who've already agreed before even coming here that they would be a part of this ascension, planetary and personal, right? That correspond is in unity. So they were showing me how this process is a part of what I was actually asking about during this winter time, because it was so difficult. And a few times I've even asked the ultimate question. And for me, the ultimate question is, why am I even still here? What am I doing here if I'm not physically able to do much? And if I'm not able to move the flow in my physical human experience, then what am I even still doing here? You see, that's where the essence work lies. It's in the, not just in the invisible and the behind the scenes, but it's in the templating itself that is first preliminary determined through the life force, which we talked about in the previous video. It's the spiritual life force that's beyond what we already feel as a certain amount and impact of energetic discharge, which we would call first, it springs through the etheric bodies, right? And then starts to descend and gradually move into lower aspects of form, moving through the astral planes, mental planes, emotional planes, physical planes, right? This is deeper, and therefore it is really intense to actually work on those levels, because you have to be so focused when something is being birthed. So at that time I asked actually the ultimate question, and I said, what am I even still doing here? I can't see the point anymore, because we've talked about, right, that hitting the wall of the majority of the expansion that was possible at this level. And those of us who've been discovering this, we were actually mapping the process. I'm going to explain what mapping is from a perspective of volunteering and how our projects actually work, what they showed me. It was really interesting because they took me back to experience in my childhood years and what mapping is in terms of anology. So that was really interesting for me to witness. I actually traveled there, so it was interesting. I'm going to talk about that as well. But they were showing me how everything was like leading to a specific moment. There was a certain amount of generation of light quotient through light beings who are present on Earth at this time with their specific missions, as well as light workers of the earthly realm who've been here for eons of time, acting as guardians, pillars, sacred gatekeepers, all of these very important beings who usually have their origin in the celestial realm, but they've actually contributed to the collective anchoring of this Christ at present on Earth for many eons of time. And these beings, as you know, we often call them light workers, were here for many lifetimes, and they've also been feeling within these changes that are leading to a certain summation point. And that's where a lot of people as light workers were getting very frustrated as well, because it felt like this is something final, but what's beyond this border of this summation point? And this was the unknown aspect we've also talked about. So they were showing me, and at that time, right, I didn't get the full answer yet right away, because the way I receive guidance is not like I ask and I immediately receive. That's very rarely so. There have to be specific alignments when that is possible. But when I asked on a specific day, the answer just came, and it was very automatic. And the answer was that we needed to stay here for a particular unfolding to hold like inner higher visions, but basically within our bodies as well. This collective light quotient infused consciousness that was a preliminary prerequisite that would serve not just to catapult this event into being, into motion, right? Like trigger it, like it would finally start to occur. Because eventually it would, as we know, the life force quotient that you keep on building through the sacred vessel, right? This is a vessel, you keep building it, it will spill over. So they told me the answer was very random and automatic and very strong. And the answer was, we needed to be here until the breaking point, until this summation point that we call the event. And that's literally what is happening now. It's not an event that happens in a day, but it's been a build-up, and it's been for many years. So a lot of us who've been consciously, but also aspects of us that are like in higher consciousness preparing us for this, we've been feeling the movement already, because at the same time, as you know, we work within the light and we work within the dark. We elevate the light and then we pull it back down through the laws of application of the descent, how the light of spirit needs to move into matter. And that's why it was always like this, right? This crisscrossing experience. But eventually this crisscrossing of light and dark would meet, and it would create this almost like a flooding, being able to open the floodgates, if you know what I mean. And we needed to be here present until that time. What comes after, even I don't know, because what they showed me yesterday is pretty intense. I'm going to talk about that on Patreon in my update in the transmission. But there's going to be a lot of evaluations happening, and that's why a lot of the things as we're witnessing are being slowed down, because the work is now being done for us. They've told me for quite a few months now, you've done this work, now we're doing it for you. Now we're doing it. It's because the spiritual hierarchies and those of us who are a legacy of life here on Earth, we're doing the work as well, also like this, right? We do the work, then we pass it on to Spirit. Spirit is doing the work, and it's kind of interchangeable. That's our work. But for a while we felt like, even though we felt the need to move forward, and it was a desire in our heart to move that, because we were ready. But it didn't take only our own readiness. There needed to be something of a higher collective, like an openness, a readiness for this reality to be shifted in a more, like a greater collective template. And that's why a lot of us have been ready, not just for months, but for years. And we're still in the waiting mode. Like we've saying, like now, the majority of the planet, well, all of the planet now, and all of the structures are in the waiting mode, like this halt, pause, reset. But we've been in this energy. A lot of you are kind of resonating with what I'm saying because you've been experiencing yourself in your life. Feeling ready, but at the same time, it's like nothing moves forward. What's wrong? Am I doing something wrong? And no, the answer is always no. It's just a process. And our human selves, we're sometimes impatient with the process because that's how they get. They're like hungry children who want that elevated experience. They're ready for the next step, but that step is not yet there. And even if the individual has already done their part and fulfilled all of their cup, ready to spill over, it's still like we're waiting at the group level for this to all match up together. So it's a synonymous experience for all of us, for the greater good. That's what the greater good means. We always say, well, for the highest good of my experience, but the highest good is never related just with our own experience. The highest good literally means that your experience as a person one is embedded in a greater experience, and you don't always see the factors that interconnect all these experiences. So what you would think that your higher or highest good is not the same as seen from the perspective of your oversoul and the collective of our human experience that is being moved towards ascension at this time. And first gradually one level of the layering that is ready for it, and then it's like gradually more and more, like more light quotient being put there, because the more of these souls that are ready and culminate in this work, a physical ascension, the more that they do this from within, the more of the light quotient is brought to the collective. So when people are saying, how can I get out of this matrix? This question still implies that there's something we need to get out of and that we need to be rescued or someone else can do this for us, but it's not true. Because we truly, as light bearers, we didn't come here to be saved or to come and then go out at the first moment of difficulty. We came here to stick with it until our time would come. And that's why I'm no longer prone to thinking in a way like I need to be here to a certain amount of years, and you know, when I'm old I can go because I finally lived a whole lifetime. For me, it's like always been this way, and especially in the last few years when I was really with my light team, when I was really in the knowing of why I'm here. And that's why for me, if my day comes tomorrow, I'm ready to leave. If it comes in 2 years, then I'm ready to leave. If it comes in 20 years, then that's when I'm ready to leave. But at each moment, it's like we don't understand how much is being calculated all the time behind the scenes. So that's what we don't understand, how much work needs to go in that behind the scene work. And today Spirit really wants to talk about that the way we start our new year, which is the most important passageway astrologically, next to, of course, solstices, right? These points that we call the solstice, the winter and summer solstice. This is one of the most important passageways because it determines the way we step into a new energy that is ready to give birth to itself. But it's not just the energy that's there as the potential. It's also how we step into it. So it takes a lot of self, not just focus and diligence, but a lot of that mentality of having not just that routine, but discipline as well. Which is when you can show up each day with that complete trust and faith. And when you don't feel like that, you either know that something within you is out of alignment, or something in the collective that you've absorbed that you're helping to work with, or that there's maybe just a false perception that something is not really in that alignment. So you have to figure out first, and then you have to tend to it. It's always like this. First we need to get guidance, what that is, and then we do something about it. So in the name of us stepping into this new year, truly one of the most important passageways, I was really eager this year for this to start. And when it started in a way that it was anticipated, although I've already felt it's going to be something like this at a higher level of my presence, but the human self was already eager and looking forward to certain things changing. And this also slowed down my own life and the reality I was building for it for so long, and my moving, right? We started the process, but then this cut everything off. and it's all in this indefinite pause right now, and there's nothing we can do because there's these higher forces at work. And so we need to see that as a blessing, truly, because what if we were trying to push towards something so eagerly, but that would only be able to come about, let's say, in an 80% of what was that envisioning, right? But if we wait a little longer, maybe it's going to be 99% or maybe even 100. But that's what we're working towards. Until the gate is open at its maximum level of efficiency, we're still kind of waiting out. And our souls are eager to see how deep we can go and how much we can benefit from the seeds we've planted here. So in a way, Aries is always like a fast-moving energy, and this is the way the year begins. But this time we're also beginning in a slow-down motion. So it's an interesting dynamics, right? So it's all kind of bringing us to this point of like a lot of insecurity about what the future holds, which is also the gift of turning into the presence, which we always tend to forget the most. Because even though our bodies exist in the now, the mind mostly doesn't. And like lower aspects, even lower aspects in the body that's already in vibrational alignment with the higher impulses that are coming through the galactic streams and the Earth's ascending essence, these aspects also kind of exist more in the past and the memories and the record memories. And still, if we haven't done the clearing and the record memory clearing through the ancestral lineage, we're still going to be, even though we're not consciously aware of it, there's still aspects of us there. But for us to physically ascend, we need to gather all aspects and perform that synthesis. And we've been talking about this white ray element of the Ascension experience, which is kind of like my own mission and purpose here as well, besides from what I do in more greater galactic levels. And when people come up and say, well, how can I ascend, or can you help me ascend, or how, can I just start doing this? You have to understand, if you're just beginning and it's like first starting to come into your consciousness, you're not just automatically gonna ascend. It's like, it is a process, but whatever you begin it, it's your timeline, it's your juncture point. It's when Spirit guided you to be there for your greatest benefit. Because let me tell you, when people come into awareness of this too much, too soon, too fast, these people sometimes become very anxious as well, because they haven't done the clearing work, and they start thinking they need to be already ahead of themselves, and it's a very frustrating experience. Everyone eventually starts at a certain point that we would call our beginning. And in that experience, which we begin, has a certain ending. And for me, that which I was working for like all of my lifetime, but specifically the last 9 to 10 years, has its ending and it's reached its culmination. That's why now my own soul life family is under an evaluation mode. We're going to see how much we can do, how much further we can go. So that's kind of now into the question mark, because these are such times. There are certain aspects that are not written yet, because a lot of it depends on the will, the consciousness, and how much the collective soul of humanity will ask for and be ready for to receive at this time as the new chapter is being written. So it's not like it's all out on the paper. That's why people can't feel this, like the further distance, right? Like the distance remote viewing. Because it's beyond what we call the destined or the fated, right? The fated aspect that we choose before coming here. There's aspects of our lives now that are truly going to teach us how to become a conscious self-creator. And because a lot of us come from aspects of life that have already been mastering, that we can teach, we can guide, we can assist at this time. Okay? So I would invite you to consider being grateful for those of you who've been here for years guiding you, those of you who maybe are just beginning, because that's what we devote our entire lives to. That's all that we do. That's all that I personally do. I don't do anything else except for going out into nature. But even when I'm in nature, I'm always receiving. So please show your gratitude and appreciation. And even in these difficult times, if you're capable, make a donation or a conscious contribution that, brings the energy, like keeps the energy in motion. Because we all need support, even people like myself. I can just live off of prana, and I know these are difficult times, and people are sometimes now losing their jobs or are in the waiting zone and they're not getting their full salaries, and I truly do understand that. But those of you who are capable and able, any kind of conscious contribution at this time, you know, it's invaluable, because it just simply keeps the energy in flow, and it keeps that gratitude and appreciation, and it keeps those of us who've been here for years like guiding, pulling forward. And sometimes people will tell me, well, what would I do without your guidance? Well, you'd manage either way, but it's still a contribution that we don't know how things would look like if, let's say, this wasn't a presence in our reality. We don't know. That's why sometimes, you know, being really grateful means to ask ourselves, what if this never came into my life? And then seeing how much of an impact it had, because it did, and then follow that gratitude and see how you're guided yourself to reciprocate in any way it means possible. So what I also want to do today is thank you for being here, because I know nowadays not a lot of people are watching, they're dealing with their stuff, and a lot of people are just with their families or using this time to just take a retreat. That's perfect, you know, these are such times, because now in the collective, a lot is being spread around, like how people can spend their time, like do this, do that. It's like, we're not here to get more bombarded with more things to do because we're just killing time. Like, people are telling people how to kill time now when we're in this waiting. This is very unconscious. We're here to go deeper and understand and accept that isolation is the key to receiving higher premonitions that, let's say, you're not able to receive if you never ever unplugged before. Like, people are so dependent upon the company of others. Like, in all my years, my greatest company here was nature. It was truly the best company ever, because that, you know, I know human company as well, and I love humans so much. But to be honest, like, nature is unconditional, and people, most of them are still not. So for me, nature is like really truly a best friend here, and I'm grateful that I was able to spend these 7 years here. And if I leave tomorrow, I'm satisfied, because I've spent beautiful years and I've met a lot of beautiful mountain tops and mountain valleys and meadows and forests, and breathing this pure fresh air. And it wasn't all easy breezy for me, because, you know, when it's sunny here, it's really beautiful, but we can have a month of pouring rain and you don't know what to do with yourself, and you can't go out, and it's terrible. Because for me, days fly by when I'm outside in nature, but kind of like when the conditions of the outside are forcing you to stay indoors, for me it's terrible. It's like living hell. It's like I can't do anything about it at that time, and even then I'm not guided to just kill time. I still have to be creative with the way I invest my presence and bring it into this world, right? So yeah, I want to thank you for being here and watching. I know not a lot of people are watching these videos, so those of you who do, thank you so much for being here in our creative space together. What happened today is I just wanted to bring through a message, like an overview of the year we're entering into. And the first thing what happened is I woke up and I instantly saw this oracle that I haven't used in years, and it's called Lord of the Rings Oracle. And it's more like this journeying oracle. You can use it in a very intuitive way. There's also a map. I didn't use that, but I just took the cards because they felt very resonating in that moment. You know, the oracle was just like standing out of the crowd of all the cards and calling me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take you if that's the will of spirit. And it's funny because in itself, the oracle was a message, because, you know, Lord of the Rings was a beautiful trilogy of this journeying, having a higher vision and never giving up. You know, just recently I saw again this video. It was almost like an uplifting video, but kind of sad as well, you know, sweet and sorrow, of the ring bearer, which we know is Frodo, just like nearly, like so exhausted and nearly about to quit. And then his constant cheerleader and encourager, Samji, right? He's telling him, he's like, why is it all this? Why is it even worth it? What are we even doing here? Like asking the same question that I was asking myself in those difficult times of peril. And Samji says, because there's still goodness in the world, there's still goodness in the people, and eventually it will prevail. And then he gives this beautiful speech. And it's just sometimes what we need, this encouragement of like, keep going. We don't see the end. It means it's not the end yet. We haven't birthed that yet. It's in the making. But when you're in the making, it's the most difficult, right? So we all want the enjoyment already. We all want to be on the other side already, but we're not. You know, that's how it is in this realm. Things have been stagnant for so long that this new birth doesn't just happen all at once, but it's happening. As you can see, it is happening. And no matter how dark conditions seem to be on the outside, from the inside, like when you tune into the core of the earth and her illumined presence that was triggered, it did come into the essence. The essence was planted. How it comes into form and when, we don't know, because a lot depends on the life, the life structures on the planet, because they're always in co-creation with the planet itself. The planet itself is just this beautiful living station, a system that can provide life, but then that life needs to be co-created with, right? Needs to be danced with and sung into being. So literally, what this told me was there's this journeying aspect, like we're on a new journey, right? Like the journey of the Lord of the Rings begins when there's a fellowship formed and they come together and they're talking about it. And there's different people who maybe in the past they didn't even agree with one another. Like the dwarves, they're like keeping themselves very much at bay. And you know, at that time they just need to come together for the highest good, for a mission and a purpose. So I took this oracle and I pulled a few cards, and I wanted them to be 7 because 7 is the number of spirit. So basically they were jumping out, and I took them one by one as they came. And I will also read you from the booklet the descriptions because they're written so beautifully. So today I actually do have my cards with me. You won't believe, but the first card that we begin with is called the Blessed Realms. I'm not sure about today how the camera looks like because I can't see it, right? That's the curse of this like self-recording. You never know how the video will come out. So I'm hoping you can see this card. It's called the Blessed Realms, and these are the realms of the heavenly abodes. And I'm going to read you from the booklet. But what this card immediately told me is there's this higher reality being birthed. And again, like Spirit is telling us, there is something of a much higher essence, you know, like the times of the Atlantis before the fall. That's kind of like what reminded me of. But it's not just some etheric city, higher city of light, but it's something that in the physical it wants to come, even if it's in its beginner stage, it wants to come through. And that's kind of like, that's our higher, that's the vision we're holding. That's what it's all for, and then that's what it's all worth it for, you know. We're going to read the cards descriptions at last. Then we have the Gray Havens. So that's the transition card. Like it's like the harbor, right, with the boats and people coming on these boats. It's like, you know, the sea is very stormy here and we don't know, we don't see, but it's kind of like there's a passageway. And in this passageway, we're all knowing that we're going to have to travel a few miles. We're going to have to do a certain journeying. And we might not know the outcome, but because of this, right, we're being told that it's this journey, it's for the higher good. And there's people coming now into this boat. Like, we have to journey from one state to the other. There's like a transition implied here. And the name itself, like the Gray Havens, like things feel very hazy perhaps at this time. For those of us who've already done this integration work of this wave, things are feeling much easier now. But those who are just coming as the second wave into this experience will maybe find it more challenging. But eventually everyone will have their transition, right? Then we have the Sword of Aragorn. This is the sword of truth. This is that divine protection. This is the victorious nature of knowing that our journey, if you would see, you know, when the cards came out one after the other, how they told a beautiful story. It's like, this is kind of like, it's divinely protected. Even though we would say, well, there's so much darkness. How do we know that this journey would be safe even? You know, how do we know we're going to be led into something beautiful? What if this will just be another downfall or demise for the human collective? But this is telling us that we ourselves are making that call. We're the ones determining the outcome by staying truth and vigilant, aligned with these higher principles that are guiding us. The next card is Rose Gamgee and Belladonna took the mothers. This is the sacred mothering card of nourishment and support. And you see, two babies being born, like twins. It's almost like two babies, like twins, and two mothers. There's a twinning nature, but I also feel like reality is being split in a way. We've all talked about the great divide, the split in realities, because we're already feeling now that the panic and the way people are now experiencing this new birth, because they're living it on the lower octaves of awareness, they're experiencing this much differently than what we are. So when you think about the dark agendas and these things, you have to be aware that when you are in this higher presence and you have this vision, right, of the blessed realms, your birth will look significantly different. Doesn't mean you're the chosen one. It means you're the one that has done the chosen self-work. You've chosen yourself to be on the different vibrational spectrum of the experience itself. So we have the mothering experience here, and safety, like safely held by the force of the mother as well. And I'm feeling here because there's two mothers, right? We have our mother source, the mother galaxy, and that which is even beyond the galactic consciousness. And then the mother who is the birthing planet, Earth Mother herself. There's two mothers, and then there's two babies. Our inner masculine, our inner feminine, the higher self, the human child, the human counterpart meeting the ET, the alien, the extraterrestrial, the light being coming through. And then we have Bjorn, the shape changer. That's the shape shifting card. You know, he's the one who's changing form. Whether he wants to do it or not, that's just his nature. It's like what this birth cultivates is like we're gonna morph into new form, but it's almost like, you know, when you have a pain or something that really bugs you for such a long time, and then you keep tending to it, and one day you get less and less invested in the process as the process itself is needing the love and cultivation, but eventually the process also wants of you to just let go and step aside. So because you've cultivated enough light to bringing the higher forces that are assisting this healing or this passageway, and then at that point you just one day forget, and the next day you wake up, wait a minute, when did this heal itself? I don't even know, because it was a part of this higher working. And it's like eventually we don't recognize how we're changing form and density in our bodies. This is a strong gateway this year for the body. A lot of the changes will be in our bodies. That's why I'm going to dedicate this year on Patreon to these body changes that are happening. And I already started, but it's going to go deeper each month. So this is kind of like a spontaneous metamorphosis, a change. It's like we're morphing into a new change, even though sometimes it's like unawareingly, but it's just, wow, when did this happen? When did my body become like this? You know, how did this change happen? The next card is the Great Sea, which is that, again, it's that sea, right? You're looking at the sunset or sunrise, whatever you know, what you resonate with most or what feels in this moment to be true. But this Great Sea is about the voyage of the unknown, you know, like they've had a certain experience, even in the past, and they knew that something else awaits. So they took the chance, they took that leap of faith, and they voyaged through the sea. And eventually there was like, the new world is there. Wow. They didn't know. It was all just this blank sea, all horizontal line. And eventually something popped out of that horizontal line. Signs of new life, a new adventure. So it's like, again, the mystery, the mystical nature of our life. Although right now it looks like this, we've traveled this certain amount of the journey, and we've mapped out everything we needed to, and there's something that's calling us. It's like, it's just this greater call. And the last card for me, it's like, it's that which leaves a mark, the seal of everything that's important, which is the 3 rings of the Elves. And the 3 rings of the Elves, literally for me, they represent love, wisdom, and power. In this case, we have the red, the white, and the blue, but this resonates right with the Divine Trinity flame, the sacred fire. It talks about this knowing of that, you know, that the journey, if we're willing, we're trusting the morphing process and the nurturing of the mothering essence. It's like we have here the love of the mother and the father, because the father is the sword, the feminine is the womb, right? So we have both. We're just trusting that this journey will have forces of both. And what we call source is the father, earth is the mother, that it's all a process, that they're always in conjunction with each other. And that leads us into a fulfillment of the purpose, which is anchored through, it's like the sacred trinity, the marriage, right? Because rings also represent a unity. And this is a union based on the trinity of life, or the divine trilogy, which is like three things, three aspects interconnected. You could say source, creation, and yourself, the one who experiences creation, or source, you as the body, the physical vessel, the human counterpart, and the earth herself. Any aspect of life can be told as a beautiful story through divine trinity. And this is the legacy of light that we're kind of leaving here. Okay, so we're going to read. Let's see if we can go one by one. If I can find it in a book. So first we have the Blessed Realms, right? Because it's not, I don't think it's alphabetical. I really don't. Yeah, I don't think so. So we have two meanings, the esoteric meaning and the personal indication. So the esoteric meaning is the Blessed Realms were the home of the Valar. You know, these are these great light beings that were creation forces that shaped all life. You can read about them in Creation Story. It's also in Wikipedia from Tolkien, which lay to the west beyond the Great Sea. Mortals were ordinarily forbidden to land there, but this is the destination of the major ring bearers at the end of the Lord of the Rings. You know how Frodo then goes there. When Ar-Pharazôn attempted to raise a fleet to sail there and invade the gods, they destroyed the world as it was, sinking his kingdom. Tolkien based this on the Atlantis legend, right? So this is really interesting. We have a memory of this highest aspect of what can be, and it's not like we want it as it was, but the vision of these traits of the high morale, high teachings, loyalty, brotherhood, sisterhood, devotion, they were there. That's what truly, for me, Atlantis, as in this highest meaning it represents, is the project of Illumined Union. Personal indication is about new horizons, fulfillment after a struggle, the realization of your ambitions, the probability of success and spiritual love. That's beautiful. Then we have the Grey Havens. Let's see if we can find those. Oh boy. Ah! There is a, let me see, 29. We do have an index. Ah, but it's not like it says it will be. Wait a minute. Oh. No, it's not. It's just the order. 9. Okay. Whatever. Okay. Esoteric meaning about this is the harbor, and the ship represents the mother, the soul, and the journey to freedom. During the potato famine in Ireland, many sailed away, mainly to America. Those that survived the passage played a huge role in building that country. We find a parallel in Exodus, where the people of God are called out of slavery to a land where they can practice their own religion and culture. So this, again, it's very metaphorically aligned with us seeking that safe haven when we can be the beings of light, no longer perpetrated all the time, invaded with, tempered with. So it's kind of like seeking that refuge, a space when you can really be yourself. A personal indication is about representing the end of an important cycle, a period of finality, even the rest and recuperation, a time to stop and take account of all that has happened, to absorb the experiences and draw important lessons that will be useful in the next phase of action in our life, a time to withdraw and reflect, recharging your batteries. That's very important at this time, truly, truly. And we have the sword. Where is the sword? I can't find it. Well, I can't find it though. It's not as easy as it looks. These pictures all look the same. Okay. Esoteric meaning of the sword of Aragorn, This sword is that which divides. Its purpose is to root out evil and vanquish it completely. In Norse mythology, Siegfried pulled his sword from the tree. In Celtic tradition, it was Arthur who pulled the sword from the stone. Perseus was given the gift of a sword by Zeus. It is the symbol of power and retribution. In folklore, Beowulf slew the mother of Grendel with a sword. Personal indication is about an opportunity to set right the wrongs of the past, breakthrough, achievement, victory, the influence of a dynamic male, positive channeling of energies, striving for justice, protection of the rights of those unable to defend themselves, being clear about objectives, the fight for freedom. Beautiful. Like I said, this is that father protection. This is that knowing that whatever happens, we need to stay focused. Why we came here. We came here to defend, not just defend our position, but make it like a natural occurrence. Because we're here, light is here. We don't have to constantly struggle and fight for it. That's the kind of consciousness we need to step into. But a lot of light workers have been in this conscious feeling of being persecuted and kind of like chased. And so this remained. It was like a remnant of the psyche of the human, that each time we come into this body of the human template, this was kind of written in there. Like there's constant forces that want you, that they're after you. But this is like that knowing that we don't have to defend anymore. Just by being here, we can make miracles happen, because like Spirit really wants humanity to remember its powers. We're larger in numbers than any other forces in the universe that are not of this light being descent, but they're of a different creation, because that's really what it exists. There are more of the fallen energies, the way they explore life in creation. But we're massively larger in numbers. So we might say, well, they're very good and they're scheming and plotting and it's like hidden behind the scenes, so that's very effective. But in truth, we are larger in the hearts and in mass. But the problem is that this mass of the people is still sleeping. That's why things are getting so difficult all the time. So the motherly energy is about these two mothers, right? Together they represent the beginning and an end of the storyline. They represent the nurturing aspect of the goddess. She who brings us into this world, helps us through our trials and tribulations, wipes away tears and comforts us in the times of our fears. 13 is the number of the goddess and represents completion, there being 13 full moons in the course of a solar year. Personal indication is a point of completion in your journey, the chance to unwind and review, an opportunity to renew old friendships, the need to value what you have already, positive associations with women of all kinds. It's really beautiful. We have both masculine protection and the feminine nurturing protection. Then we have the shape-shifting energy of the shape changer. Bjorn is one of these fabulous beings that inhabit the intermediary world of animal and human. So it's like that crisscrossing, right? It's like in between densities, in between the third and the fifth, right? As a friend of humanity, he nevertheless wishes to retain his own independence and distance from the world of mortals. Legends abound of beings such as he, shape changers, werewolves, mermaids, to mention a few. Some are more friendly towards humans than others, but this is really about we're morphing, like different density. Personal indications, the desire to move ahead on individualistic path, personal freedom valued beyond all else, wariness of losing your identity in any group or herd, the struggle for independence, the ability to fulfill different roles. So there is this division happening, but it's happening because you've chosen a different vibration alignment, and that's your path. Then we have the Great Sea. Let's see. The Great Sea, sing to me. Okay. The esoteric meaning. The Great Sea represents the unknown, the uncharted voyage which awaits each of us. Ulysses, Hercules, Jason, Quetzalcoatl, Thor, each had to go on a voyage in order to discover something. The Great Sea on ancient maps was inscribed with the words, "Here be dragons." Mariners believed that if they sailed far enough, they would fall off the edge of the world. The new world opened up a new era. So it's like where we are now. It's like, what happens after this? What happens after these resets? What happens next? It's like we need to learn to trust the templating of the life force that was the source of all this being birthed. And when you align yourself, it's like imagine you're being kind of like lock it and the key, right? You're being aligned with that core template. Like, just visualize that, meditate on it, whatever. Believe it, trust it. It's like you're training your own energy levels to match up with that, where our energy needs to be at this time. Energy is changing. It goes with our focus. And where our vibration is, our focus is leading towards, and energy follows that. So the personal indication here is that it represents the quantum leap in consciousness that you are being required to take. Evolution is often thought of as happening very gradually, but in fact it occurs often with sudden accelerations. And this is like this, the gradual build up and then a sudden change, like now. It's like suddenly everything changed, like even overnight for some people in some cultures. And then for all of us, globally. The breaking down of what one had previously thought was a fixed state of one's personal universe, the intrusion of new life, the bringing to you of an important message. And the last one, the 3 rings of the Elves, speak about the esoteric meaning. The red ring was called Aurea and was given to Gandalf. This represents the element of fire for inspiration, action, and enthusiasm. The sapphire ring was called Vilya and was worn by Elrond. It represents the quality of air, thought, intelligence, and the ability to reason and clarify. The white ring was called Ninya, the ring of water, and was worn by Galadriel. Its elemental water quality represents love, intuition, empathy, emotion, and feeling. So you see we have feminine traits, the masculine traits, and that fire, which is like spirit, it feeds both. It feeds both through the masculine and feminine. That's why we have Gandalf as that main guide. And when you can join like our inner sacred marriage, for me, it's like really about sacred marriage. It's this hero's gamos, right? It's the sacred marriage. It's the feminine traits, the masculine traits. If you can really cultivate and sustain them in this physical form, that higher wisdom comes naturally as the birthing. So as a personal indication, it talks about extreme good fortune, especially in spiritual matters, help given from an unexpected quarter, unseen forces working on your behalf, realization, the ability to experience your life as a journey, new opportunities opening up. So that's kind of like what these messages are about. I think it's a really clear message of our year ahead. I actually have the Ninya ring. It's like a beautiful movement. It goes like this. It's right in alignment with what I was talking about, the rose opening up. I bought it years ago when I was really tuning into the Elven essence, and I love Galadriel and what she stands for. So I also took some of these cards, like our stamps, right? Stamping, like declarations of what we want this year to be no matter what. This is not about the external. This is about us needing to birth it. Like whenever you want to birth something, as you know, the collective or status quo will never be in complete compliance with that. You're going to have to stick with it anyway. So these kind of like our stamps saying, I declare this. I make this happen. I'm birthing this no matter what. And this is what kind of makes the division between a true spiritual warrior and a wannabe, you know? Everyone wants to be super aware and conscious in that. But for a true spiritual warrior, it takes a lot of work, truly. So we have butterfly, which says a change for the better, which means we have to witness these changes. That they want our lives to be better and more beautiful, because butterfly is a symbol of beauty as well. We have elephant, a long journey, either physical or mental, will leave you wiser at the end. Like elephants are one of the most conscious beings, like not just animals, but beings. I don't just see them as an animal. They're like a being. They're so beautiful. They're so aware. They have sense of humor. They have memory. And they can travel long distances, always in their little tribal community herd, except if we humans harm them. But it's like their spirit is like, it can be broken. It's like, it talks to me about not allowing our spirits to be broken, no matter how long this journey continues to be. It's what it is. Then we have candle. You will be shown the way. It's like needing to persevere in our faith and trust and cultivate that higher sense of ceremony. Is not like, you know, when people say, well, now it's the full moon and now it's the equinox, or, you know, and we're going to do this ceremony, and they lay out the cards and the stones and the crystals, and then they do this ceremony. For me, a true act of the higher nature of ceremony is when your alignment will match up the alignment of the highest energy potential coming through at that time. If you set up a beautiful fountain of light, whatever kind of statue that reminds you of that, an altar, you go out in nature, place a few stones, that's your personal connection with the elements. You're getting involved with the elements. But what's coming through again is the spiritualization of life force coming through that makes something potent and makes it happen. So for me, that's a true ceremony. It's like it makes alignment possible. It's like holding the space for alignment and then alignment coming and happening. Then we have hammock is the last one. Taking a vacation physically or mentally. This also asks us to maybe see a blessing in this occurring situations that we all sometimes have been craving. Well, we all have been craving for a little more break in our lives. Some of you maybe wanted to go travel because it was so difficult for you to just keep on maintaining this light work, whatever you call it. It's a light and shadow work, truly. But it's like letting us know that it's truly a time to maybe not work as much as we used to, like physically engaging, like internalizing the way we consider work to be. Again, it's inviting us more to this proximity with nature, not just closeness, but interconnectedness, being outside, being outdoors. Because the hammock represents this for me. I have my portable hammock with me all summer, and I just put it whatever I want, and I'm with Gaia. I just love it. I just love the energies and beautiful days. And it reminds us of that feeling. How does it feel when, you know, the wind is swaying you, you're laying there, and life is like you don't have a care in the world. And we often fear that because we say, oh, I'm not supposed to feel that way. It's feeling too good, so I'm not being a nice little supporter of society, a provider, and this and that. It's time to like really drop a shield on those roles and just enjoy for a while, like truly enjoy. Okay, so I'm feeling into this year being like a lot of slowing down and then something changing dynamically and very fast. And then again, I'm feeling like this exchange of energy. A lot of slowing down and then acceleration, and again. This will be kind of like our energy mastery for this year. And those of you who at any point in time, maybe when you have your reset coming back into life and you have your, as you know, there is no such thing as an external safety. Safety is within. But when you have a feeling of stability, if you want to, you can join my page. It's called Ascension on Patreon. You're more than welcome there in our community. So in any way, there's 3 levels where you can join, and we're going to be doing the work. You know, nothing will stop us from doing that. I know people come and go, and probably these are very challenging times, but my work cannot stop just because of that. You know, I'm going to do it until I'm called and guided, and when the next step comes and is presented, then that's what that will be. So anyway, I wish you a beautiful time during this equinox, and enjoy the energies that are coming through your body, and a beautiful year as well. But I don't want to wish too much in advance because we're in touch. And as always, so much love is in power. So much love. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Mwah. Have an amazing experience. Bye.